Hey friend, Moses here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to record a podcast using a phone, specifically with Riverside. Why Riverside? Because Riverside, it is a platform that allows you to record a podcast locally or remotely with a guest. Yes, with a guest. Okay, and stick around because at the very end, I'm going to show you how do you invite a guest. And what if you're doing a video podcast? What if you're doing a remote video podcast? How does all that work? Okay, I'm not gonna steal any more of your time, so let's just dive right into it. Okay, so this right here is Riverside, and I have this studio here called Kabandana Academy, and I can record it. As you can see at the bottom right here, I can hit record, and just like that, I can start recording a podcast. I will then have the ability to edit that podcast, and I can straight from Riverside I can publish that episode straight to Spotify. Okay, back to my screen here. I'm gonna hit record. I'm gonna do a short introduction podcast, and then I will show you how I can trim the beginning and trim the ending so that I can start publishing. Okay, I'm gonna hit record here, and it's gonna do its thing real quick. What it's gonna do is it's gonna open this studio and I can join the studio. I'm joining my own studio here. Now, here is where it matters if I am doing a solo podcast, if I'm doing a an audio and video podcast, if I am doing a remote podcast. All of that is going to be done right here. So if we jump right back into it, if I'm doing an audio only podcast, which is what this example is going to be about, I'm going to turn off the video here on the bottom left. Of course, I'm going to keep the microphone on. And what I'm going to do from here on out is simply hit record on the top left, record a small episode, and then, well, hit end. Okay, so here I'm going to hit record. Hey there, fellow citizen of the internet. This is the Moses Kabandana podcast. This is a simple introductory podcast to show you how to record a podcast using the Riverside app, specifically on your phone. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Again, Moses here, and I will see you in the next episode. Okay. And just like that, I hit stop. And I essentially, if this was a full podcast, it would have recorded just my audio using the microphone that is built in on my phone. Now, if I have an external microphone that I attached onto the phone, that would take the sound quality to the next level. But that might be an episode for a different day. So for now, we're just assuming that all you have is your smartphone and you're recording your in person, audio only podcast using Riverside. Okay, so now diving right back into the Riverside app, I'm going to leave the studio here because I'm no longer recording. And as we can see, we can view our recordings right here. Now, these are my previous recordings that I was doing tutorials on how to create a podcast. I have an entire online course for that. So if you're interested, just DM me or I don't know. Leave a comment below. Okay. So, as the app is doing its thing here, its processing is going through, and I'm going to click here to open the episode. And the the cool thing about this app is that everything can be done in the app. Now, the ability to edit your podcast on a whole different level is not here yet on the app, so keep that in mind. Right now, I'm simply able to trim the beginning and trim the ending so that I can get rid of those mistakes that I might have made at the beginning of the episode. Maybe I was still thinking about the topic, or maybe I hit record and there's like 5 seconds before I actually started recording. And then I can trim the ending as well. Let's say there's like 5 seconds, 10 seconds after I say, I'll see you in the next episode. And then I'm fidgeting around trying to hit the end recording button. I can trim that out too. So let me show you that. So this is the episode that we finished recording. I didn't give it a name or anything like that. So I'm gonna hit here on create a new edit, right? And what this is going to do, like I said, it's going to allow me to trim the beginning of the episode, trim the ending of the episode, and you can visually see. Let me show you here. Um, Here you can see verbally what I said, right? Hey there, fellow citizen of the internet. This is Moses Capadana. It got my name wrong there, the spelling of the name, but That's totally fine. So here is where the magic comes in. We're gonna hit trim here, and you see the little space at the beginning on the left there. I'm gonna trim all that spacing out because maybe I wasn't quite speaking yet. And then at the very end, let's say I want to trim that too. I find a sweet spot. Of course, I would hit play every single time so that I can make sure that what I'm trimming out is indeed what I want trimmed out. Okay. Okay. So diving back in, let's say I've done the editing that I want. And by the way, here's the cool part. Here's the cool part. Okay. You can see here that if all I want is a short TikTok 30-second video, I can just hit that 30-second and it's gonna find a 30-second time frame and I can just export that, right? But I want the, let's say I want the whole thing. Yeah, I want the whole thing, and I'm just gonna take out that first second there. And let's just assume that these are like mistakes there too. I'm gonna keep it at that. And then I can hit export right there. Now, remember when we talked about whether you are doing a video podcast, an audio podcast, in person or remote? If you were doing a video and an audio podcast, this is where it matters, right? Because now I can export this as a video or as an audio only. Now, this was, for the sake of this example, this was an audio only uh, in-person podcast, a solo podcast. So I'm gonna hit export audio right there. I'm gonna go back to recordings. Now, here's what you've been waiting for. What if I'm doing a video podcast with a remote guest? That's where I would come here, back to the screen here. I would record a new podcast. It's going to open up this studio. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to join the studio. I'm going to invite a guest with a link. And then when the guest joins the studio, then both me and the guests, our audio and video will be recorded, all of that. And they can be on a phone too, as well. That's totally fine. Okay, back to here. I can join the studio. And then I hit the invite here, and then I can invite a new guest. And just like that, I copy the link, I send them the link, and then they can join the call, the recording there with me. Now this has been just a touch on the surface of what Riverside can do just using the phone, which is just amazing nowadays. Now, if you want to take your editing on a whole new level, right? Let me switch here to the screen here. This, I'm gonna refresh the page here, and we're gonna see here, this is Riverside on the computer, not an app on the computer, but just on the browser, right? I just refreshed the page. We can find the episode here that I recorded. And here's where it gets even crazier, which is gonna be an episode for a whole different day on how do you take the editing capabilities of Riverside to a whole different level besides what you can aside from what you can do just on the phone. So back to the screen here. This was an audio only podcast, of course, but here I can trim, of course, like we did on the phone, right? I can trim all of this. By the way, remember, all of this is done on the browser. I don't have to download any applications on my computer, nothing like that. Okay, so back to the screen here. I can trim. And of course, let's say there's like a mistake somewhere here. Let's say this here is a mistake from here to here. That's a mistake, right? What I'm gonna do is I can come here on the browser. I can hit split. I can come here where the mistake ends. Let's just pretend here we're pretending that you're going through your entire podcast and you're removing some of the mistakes that you don't want to end up in the final podcast. Okay. So, okay, you come here and you find that this is another mistake. You hit split here, and just like that, you have this little chunk in the middle. This is the mistake, and you just hit delete, and just like that, you have deleted the mistake. Okay, the tutorial for how to edit the podcast on Riverside on a computer, that's gonna come on a much later time. But for now, I just wanted to show you how you can edit, how you can record, edit, and upload your podcast on Riverside using your phone. We didn't get to the uploading part, so let me just do that right now. And so you can see here that it says exported, and I can save directly on my phone. I can also hit Spotify, right? If I hit Spotify, it gives me these three instructions, super simple. I'm going to save the audio. I'm going to go to the Spotify for Podcasters application, and then I'm going to simply upload from there. Okay, so let's do just that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my phone. I'm going to find Spotify for Podcasters. I'm going to launch it. And this is my how to create a podcast. It's really not a real podcast. It's just for demonstrations here. I might turn it into a podcast later on. Okay. So I can come here. I'm going to hit podcasts and I'm going to hit the plus button here. And if I hit select a file, that's going to open up where I saved that podcast that we just recorded. And just like that, the episode is going to be on Spotify and Google Podcasts. I don't think that exists anymore. Apple Podcasts and every other place that I chose to share my RSS feed um, with. Okay, so this it has run a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I just wanted to show you that with Riverside, you can record, edit, and upload an episode to Spotify directly from your phone. What a time to be alive. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you got any value from it, give it a thumbs up. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.